but we want to make the most of this half an hour. So I'm simply, first of all, going to ask the panel just to say who they are and say one or two words about this whole area of inclusion that's relevant to the work they do, and they can comment on what they've heard already this morning, that's fine too. And then I might ask them one or two questions, but my real intention, please, would you think of your questions, because I do want this bit to be interactive. You've had to listen to a lot of us talking at you. That is not what we wanted this just to be. So please, please, this will be about Cornwall, because this is relevant local. We want you to participate. So I'm going to start at the far end. There we go. Off you go.
Thank you. And thank you for today. It's been absolutely incredible. This is my first time on the panel, so I'll quickly describe who I am. So I'm Matthew Kenworthy-Gomes, Chief Exec of Cornwall Pride. We are a newly formed charity, even though we've existed for the last 15 years, and we've delivered our pillars this year as part of awareness, support and celebration, very much raising the profile of the LGBTQ+ community here in Cornwall. It's been an incredible year, and raising obviously that celebration as we move to understand support across mental well-being and training organisations. It's really interesting to hear the synergies of the challenges and the complexities of getting older with all of the different intersectionalities. So many conversations with people understanding that as you get older, there is a fear of being out within care homes or within the families when we talk about being LGBTQ+, and also that actually 1 in 8 businesses in the UK have a policy specifically around the LGBTQ+ community. So there's so much more work to do when we talk about differences and inclusivity.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being so on time. Right, Mark.
Yeah, hi, Mark Duddridge, I chair the LEP. My background is making food for supermarkets, some in rather large sites, some in startups and small sites. One like Kim, today is really, really timely, so for many reasons, and I just want to maybe give a slightly different perspective. I've recently done a piece of work with SMEs in the food industry, sort of working them on a sort of hand-to-hand over a kitchen table or a table with a cup of tea, talking about their businesses. And many have been hugely entrepreneurial, fantastic products, but when it came to how they did their process, very much this is the way it is, isn't it? Sort of trying to cram everything into the normal working day, extending that and then complaining they were full or complaining they couldn't find any staff. So one of the challenges I think that we could pick up from here is how do we create opportunity in the workplace by looking at the whole process and not just designing individual jobs, but looking at that whole process from the point of view of we need to become more productive to sell more and to make more money, which is not a dirty word, it's just a fact of life. What brought this home to me on Friday, I went to a business up in Derbyshire, I won't say who it was, not an SME, make food. Their limiting factor on their production was the fact they couldn't label box and put things in the boxes. That slowed down the whole program of making this particular set of products, and their answer to that was to recruit people from Nepal, which was a bit of a shocker when naturally all that piece of work at the end could have been done at other times of the day, more accessible to a wide range of people, but that had not occurred to them, and if it hadn't occurred to them, it's not going to occur to an SME who is starting off on this world. If we can change that, we make so much more opportunity, because often those jobs are the ones most accessible by the broadest group of people, whatever their background or condition. But I'm struck by the fact that most people don't think like that. The second thing, I want to pick up on something that Kim said in 10 seconds, Carol. Cornwall is changing. The businesses that Kim alluded to are hugely big. They are attracting millions of pounds, probably billions of pounds into Cornwall over the next 5-10 years, the likes of which we haven't seen since Poldark. Money for them is not a problem. Technology and opportunity is not a problem. All of them talk about the problem being how are we going to recruit it and how are we going to do it. So we, from this conference, need to make sure that these big guys with deep pockets get it right from the very beginning. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity in many ways for Cornwall and for the agenda of people in the room.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Thank you. Yes, so Jane Johnson, I'm the Chief Executive with Disability Cornwall and Isles of Scilly, Disabled People's User-Led Organisation. I'd just like to say a couple of words about, I always think if we can do anything anywhere, we can do it in Cornwall because of our community and who we are and what we are and our willingness to work together. And we know in Cornwall we've got a higher than national average proportion of disabled people at about 23% of our population. That will go up when we get the latest census data, I have no doubt. But also, due to long COVID, our colleagues at Buckinghamshire Disability Services, who've been working with some leading pandemic specialists and statisticians, can't say that, are telling us that the numbers of people with a long-term health condition due to COVID alone are going to increase by up to 1.9 million people of working age or younger by 2025. At our organisation, we pride ourselves on the fact, this was data up to last year, 65% of our staff have a long-term health condition or disability, massive proportion, yet we had the highest retention rates and lower than national average sickness levels. Our age ranges are 18 to 78 between our staff and our trustee board, but we're not diverse enough yet, and we work at that every day. What I would just like to say about inclusive employment, to me, what is inclusive employment? And we've heard all of this that we're hearing today. It's about being person-centred, is it not? It's about seeing people not as just workers, but as individuals. What are your needs? What can we do? How can we support you? How can we make work more manageable for you? And that's what it is. Now, for disabled people, obviously, there are barriers in the built environment. There clearly are. But one of the messages that we really want to get across and what we want to work on now with small and with SMEs is if you make your environment accessible, you're giving people access to your goods and services. Surely SMEs want that. That's making it accessible for employees as well. And the cost, the case for this, case for inclusion, the moral case, be inclusive. Why would you not be enabling? Why would you not want everyone in your community to reach their social and economic potential? Diversity enriches business, as we hear here. The legal case, it's the law. We have the Equality Act. The business case, access the purple pound. Spend empower disabled people, 274 billion it's worth nationally. If they can't get in your premises, they're not spending their money with you. And just a very short case study, if I may. Just this one came to us last week. Chris, 19, has a learning difficulty. Been working with a builder's merchants for the last 6 months. Loves his job, absolutely loves it. Had a work coach working with him. The business said, no problem. At the end of the 6 months, if he keeps doing well, he can have employment at the end of it. Mum spoke to them, no job available. Then she saw an advert go on their website for a yard operative, and the advert said, we pride ourselves on being an inclusive employer. She challenged them to either live what they're saying or remove it. And really sadly, they chose to remove it. That's what we're still living with today. Let's hope we can make a change.
Thank you, Tracey.
I knew it was a mistake following Jane. I knew I should have sat at the other end of the panel, but I was frightened of falling off. So I'm Tracey Roose. I'm Chief Executive of Age UK Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. Yes to all of that. We share the same values. We work together. We have the same views and opinions about inclusivity. So we've got a workforce of around 110 staff and around 300 volunteers. So a human force of 400 people, of which 75% are over 50, and of those, the vast majority have a self-identified long-term condition, a disability, or are caring for somebody with a long-term condition and disability. And I think that's an important component, of today's discussion. We support around 55,000 people a year. That's increased dramatically over the last 2 years. Unless inclusivity forms the key strand of our business sustainable programme, we don't have a business. So that's why we've been involved in the disability programme, have been delighted to be so, and continue on that journey.
Thank you.
Thank you, then, Carol. Just to add to what you heard from me earlier, I'm also Chair of Trustees of Cornwall Community Foundation and a small soft drinks business owner myself. And wearing all of those hats, I am I hope by nature an inclusive person, and I think what we've got to do from today's sort of get-together is make sure that the language we use is inclusive of SMEs. There was an issue a few years ago, wasn't there, around some other things that some people are frightened of using the wrong terminology and therefore don't get on the path to this. Now, we certainly, in the Planet Sea Month, which we've got, we certainly don't want greenwashing, but we are welcoming everybody, because if they're talking about it and are on the journey, that's better than burying their head in the sand. So I think in terms of outreach into all the small SMEs in the sectors that Mark's talking about, the forward-looking ones are likely to be more engaged with this discussion. The traditional ones might be a little frightened of the terminology, the inclusivity. So let's make sure that we the knowledgeable people, include everybody in this journey. And it's horrific to hear stories like the one that Jane just told. And I hope they are a diminishing minority, but let's get those messages out to them from this group in a clear and meaningful way that they can join the journey.
Thank you very much. I mean, it would have been interesting to understand their rationale for that, wouldn't it? I mean, what are the barriers for them? In holding those sorts of views? And is there any way to help organisations that feel they need to say that? I mean, what is it that could perhaps have helped them be much more inclusive?
Yeah, and I think there is a fear around it. I think people think disabled people, you're going to cost me a lot more money. It's not the truth. I think with young people, and I think that a lot of the work barriers that persist are young people with a learning disability or autism, but they will be supported. They'll have an education, health and care plan. They'll probably be supported by a work coach up till the age of 25. You actually get extra capacity there, not just the employee. And yeah, they will say to you, some of that particular type of for that particular type of disability, say they want a repetitive job. Some of us don't want a repetitive job, but there are repetitive jobs that need doing. Don't be afraid to write a job description that's a repetitive job and think that nobody will want it. That's the perfect job for some people. Yeah.
And indeed, even in a repetitive job, it's what you wrap around that job and how you treat the human being and what the social interactions are with that job. I mean, I've seen it on, many factories I've been to when you think, gosh, this is a repetitive job. But I remember going to Rolls-Royce and asking the guys, there were mainly guys doing the cars, wouldn't you like, to have a different job? They liked their team and they liked the bit they put in and didn't appreciate me wanting to move them on at all. I mean, on the contrary, this interfering woman who wants us to do a different job. So it's about how you treat the human being.
It absolutely is. And there was a little bit more to Chris's story, because Chris has had multiple jobs, that nothing ever lasts. And because there's summer, there's seasonal, that kind of thing. But we actually had stories as his dad had to go to work with him to show him how to do the job because his employer failed to do it. And once his dad went to work with him for a week and showed him the job, he did manage to continue it for the whole summer. It is just having that support. And he was valued so much by his colleagues that they offered to pay his salary at the end of the summer to keep him on working with them. Yeah.
I could say, Carol, on the sort of repetitive jobs thing, but the examples I was seeing over the summer is they don't have to be done during the normal working day, and that opens up all sorts of opportunities. And as Mel talked about, access to transport, access to getting into work. Everybody leads complex lives. If you start building the jobs around the people with a view of actually I need to get these jobs done quicker, better, that bit of imagination does open up opportunities. So it's not just the nature of the job, it's the when and the where and the how. And we shouldn't just think in stereotypes.
I was going to ask you all before I open it up. Recruitment is obviously a challenge. And are there any tips or anything that's worked, you would say, in thinking about recruitment in Cornwall? Any good ideas that could be shared? Because I do think recruitment has become, and I presume it is as much a problem here.
It's actually worse here, Carol, because we had loads of EU workers here who've gone back now since Brexit in some of those key sectors that I was talking about earlier, so hospitality, care sector, retail and agriculture. There were loads of, so the problem is actually exacerbated. faded here. Yeah, I think what Mark's saying really is that this labour shortage should be the opportunity to have flexibility. So projects that people can do from home, they can dip in and out as their mental health or their other, physical trips to hospital or whatever it might be, allow them to do. Come in if they're stressed, by being in an office with other people while working from home, or coming in the evenings and doing a project at their time. So actually, if employers get their head round this flexibility, there's a massive opportunity. It's a win-win.
Tracey, anything?
Yeah, so retention, I think, is our biggest recruitment strategy, is keeping the people that we've got and supporting them to age in place with us. And I think shaping the role around the person is absolutely key to that. I'll just reflect, of the last 10 people we employed, 7 came from nursing and teaching backgrounds. And it's interesting to see their reflections about wanting flexibility, wanting that hybrid work office space, wanting to work across a 7-day week to fit in with other family lifestyle caring responsibilities, their own needs. I think it's all about creating the most agile, flexible role you can around the person that you can get.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be really important as well now as we head into this winter, and employers need to be, working with their staff on a one-to-one. How can you help your staff on a one-to-one basis to reduce their own costs, or, try and minimise the impact of what's going to happen this coming winter now? Can you do more home working, hybrid working? I don't know, be more flexible in whatever way. Look at other ways that you might be able to help them connect with the voluntary and community sector. There might be grants, crisis grants, I don't know, whatever people need, we might be able to help. So employers should have that responsibility as well. But when it comes to recruitment, can I just say, think about where you're advertising, think about how accessible your recruitment materials are, think about the message that you're sending out. Are you a disability confident employer? Do you say disabled people welcome to employ? Do you say we welcome a diverse workforce and we want to hear from everyone and we recognise the value in that? Think about what you're saying, how you put it and where you're advertising it.
Thank you. Mark or Matthew?
So I think actually one of the advantages that we have as Age UK, Disability Cornwall and Cornwall Pride is the people that are coming to work with us have a passion and a purpose from their marginalised and intersectionalities. So actually, how can employers generate that element of purpose within employment? And it, again, from the work that we've done and understanding, looking at young people when they're I've talked to Kim about this, where actually a lot of people have liked TikTok and they want to become entrepreneurs and they're really understanding their authentic selves, whereas we've got a business world which is very rigid in what they want to be able to deliver. And actually our partners, and working with Cornwall Pride, we've got a new partnership with NHS, and they've seen a stark increase in Cornwall with LGBTQ plus people wanting to access roles. Pets at Home, a perfect example, very simple example is in Truro, Pets at Home. Their workforce is probably about 70% LGBTQ plus, and that was just with working with Cornwall Pride for last year. The same work for GWR. So it's about that visibility, it's about that attraction and where you attract, and ensuring that actually you've got an ability to, as an employer, to say, we've got a safe space, we know that we have the policies in place to keep that retention, to keep that engagement, and we want you to be with us.
I think, Carol, one of the things which it does feel like it's changing, but this whole issue of recruitment does need, it's a bit of a blind spot at the moment. It does need a lot more interventions by the expertise in this room. Kim and I talked to a lot of businesses who've changed their whole business, followed their customers around through COVID, changed the whole product offer means of getting there. But when you talked about recruitment, nothing has changed. And it's the same old, and I've gone to friends or I've gone on the paper, whatever it happens to be. But and it's trying to just switch that light on. And it is going to become business critical now. And with cost of living crisis, who's knows? But those businesses that don't get this, there isn't, it's a bit like your planet, Kim. There isn't a plan B. You have to do this. And the winners will be the sort of people that Matthew talked about that do it. And I think once that light bulb is on, the creativity will flow. But we've all got to give it a bit of a nudge, because at the moment it's a blind spot.
Thank you. Can I please open it up to the floor, either for questions or observations from your own organisation? But thank you. Could we have, and then when you finish, do you mind passing it on to the next table?
Not at all, thank you. Hope you can hear me okay. Hi, my name's Tigger Pritchard, and I wanted to raise awareness, I think, of a huge workforce that we haven't really touched upon yet, and a huge workforce that is seen as disabled, though I wouldn't want to link them with a disability per se. 1 in 7 individuals are neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, so on and so forth. The discrimination they face on a daily basis because of the lack of understanding, the lack of up-to-date knowledge and awareness about what it means to be neurodivergent is huge. And the demographic of neurodiversity covers everything that's up on the stage. We are everywhere, as the saying goes. And I'm kind of conscious of the fact that I feel it's something we're missing today. It's called managed work for everyone, a resource for policymakers. 1 in 7 individuals neurodivergent. And I think there's still not enough going on to change awareness of our needs as a workforce, to change the understanding of employers and individuals out there. The minute you mention, hi, I'm autistic, the minute you mention, hi, I'm ADHD, people go, oh, you're disabled. And it's an attitude and a bias, both conscious and unconscious, that needs to be changed. And I wonder what you as a panel felt about that.
I think that's a very...
I know it's going to come to me, Tigger. Hi, Tigger. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. A lot more to do. We've got to come together and we have to address it. I think you talk about disability. Everyone thinks about the built environment and actually, you know, steps and things like that, but actually only 8% of disabled people are actually wheelchair users, and hidden disability is massive. How are we going to do it? I don't have the answers, but I know we need to do it, and we've got a lot of work to do.
It's changing attitudes, certainly, and making sure that up-to-date information is out there. I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff in this county alone where people have a complete and utter lack of understanding of what it means to be neurodivergent, what it means to be an autistic individual, ADHD, and so on and so forth. And I think there are some things that are changing, but I still see so many people I speak to say, I want a job. I got a job, I couldn't stay in the job. And there's so much research globally as well that says the productivity of your organisation could be transformed by including neurodivergent individuals within that workforce. All you got to do is change your mindset, reframe that attitude, and you can really transform what's going on. And that's something I would love to see develop more in this awesome county of Cornwall.
So take it from that actually is kind of accepting the fact if we do something over and over again, we're going to continue to do the same thing. And if we accept difference, we can propel ourselves, further innovate and move forward.
And I think, you know, you could say even 15 years ago, mental ill health was treated perhaps in the way that neurodiversity is treated today. We got better at that. We're not good, but we're better. And so, you know, it is a journey that can be taken.
When, just one thought on that, when Claire Harris was here, work on the Beacon project years ago, we went to the University of Exeter, funnily enough, and we were talking to some of Emma's colleagues about the work we're doing, sort of a little bit apologetically, really, not necessarily expecting there to be an opportunity for the university to engage at that time. This is going back some years. But the comment that was made from them is they were desperate for people who've got the ability to focus on detail over and over again, and they couldn't get them. And we were sitting there thinking, we know people who would be perfectly comfortable and would be so engaged by doing X, Y, Z, and it came out of a chance conversation about something else, and it shouldn't be like that. So I hope from today it can carry on the work that was started, and we can maybe join a few more dots.
Thank you.
I was just going to make a kind of organisational reflection on that point, really, because why did we ever think that firing questions at people in an interview process was the best way of getting somebody? Why did we do that? So one of the things that we've started to do is actually give people the headlines of the topics that we're about to discuss with them so that we can plan together to have a conversation. Why on earth do we use it as a test? I have no idea. And then working with people about, you know, what's the best way to do that? For some people, that prefer digital, actually, because there's a barrier. Some people prefer face-to-face, some people prefer written, some people prefer pictures, whatever. How do we recreate the recruitment process to best fit the people that we need for the jobs?
That's a very good point.
I think that's a really interesting observation, and then, you know, I think I and many employers are on a journey still. I've been one where that's become accepting. I've become more accepting and understanding over the last 20 years, and I'm sure there are people ahead of me and behind me, and I just think we need to be on a journey. I think that sort of insight, Tracey and Jane, is absolutely fabulous. And look again at the flexibility of one's colleagues and the workforce which makes up what needs to be delivered for your business and for your customers by encouraging and including all these people in these different ways. I think it's just, we're all on a journey. Let's try and speed that up as much as we can.
I've got a lady on the next table, and then we'll need to get a microphone to you, or you can talk very loudly to us.
Just to start off, my name's Sarah Newham. I'm a Senior Partnership Manager for DWP. I lead out a team of disability employment advisors across the whole of Cornwall and Devon, a group of partnership managers in Cornwall, and I'm also the lead for 50 Plus. So today's event, I just wanted to give you a massive thank you, because this agenda just needs so much exposure through Job Centre Plus. As you'll be aware, we've worked tirelessly through COVID and coming out of COVID to help people back into employment. Those people that are left with us now are many of those people that we've described today. And for me, I've worked across Cornwall for many years, and what I've always been very proud of in Cornwall is the collaboration between us. And for me, I hope today's event, it will kickstart us all to collaborate even more, because together we can really support these people to move back towards and into employment. Through DWP in recent months, we've been running disability confident events. I'm really proud to say that since March, we've signed up 113 new businesses to Disability Confident. Through Job Centre Plus again, work experience, and also our work trial programme is a fantastic way for businesses who are maybe a little bit unsure about that individual, giving them a chance within their business to see if it's the right business. Obviously, access to work, you're absolutely right, Dame Carol Black. It is the government's hidden secret. It's out there. It can help so many people. Our disability employment advisors are there to support our customers. Our employment advisors are there to help you as businesses. Please give us a shout. We're more than happy to help in any way that we can. Thank you.
Well, Sarah, when we spoke on Monday morning at the Cost of Living Crisis Conference, we made the point there, didn't we, that if we can't solve these problems in Cornwall, God help the rest of the world. I mean, we know where everybody is in Cornwall, and as I said earlier, if you screw up here, everybody knows about it. So let's use everybody in this room and your networks to make sure that some of these things we're discussing this morning are carried out. Testbed Cornwall is a phrase which I think a lot of us like, and let's try and make it work here first.
Lady over there, yes. It's coming.
Carol.
And then after that question, I could take one more if there's a keen hand. Anyway, splendid.
Hi, I'm Frances Brennan. I'm Vice Chair of the Heart of the Southwest, get it right side the border. Cornwall Niles is Silly Lep. I also chair the Employment Skills Board. But I also work for Plymouth City Council at the moment. I know it's the evil side of the Tamar. My question for probably both you, Dame Carol, but also for Mark, because I like putting him on the spot, is how do we challenge government to deliver programmes that don't cause us a problem with arbitrary parochial boundaries? I live in southeast Cornwall. We get forgotten by Cornwall. We get forgotten by Plymouth. I've delivered and bid for several large DWP contracts. They're designed centrally and don't fit when you bring them down to a local level. And I'm immensely concerned about the rollout of county deals and SPF, that people who are on the boundaries of a local authority will inadvertently fall through those cracks, as well as being maybe older workers, disabled, protected characteristics. So the challenge is, how do we challenge government about their commissioning of large programmes and delivery defined in local authority areas?
Mark, you want to...
Thank you, Francis, and good that you can remember which LEP you actually work for. But, I will forget that. I don't know the answer, but I think it lies within the fact that this isn't an option anymore. We have to get people into work for all the reasons that Dame Carol described and you know intimately, but we also have to get people into work because the businesses will fail. And we've got businesses, despite the cost of living, who are failing. We've got demand going backwards, we've got capacity being limited, and getting people of all persuasions, abilities, conditions into the world to work, and working with employers and as intimately as you guys are working with individuals isn't an option, and it was always seen as an option. I think it's not. I do absolutely agree with the point underneath that is that, and the point that Kim's made is that you do that with trusted partners that know the businesses, know the individuals, and know the practicalities of living in our part of the world, of actually physically getting to and from work and all that goes within it. So I would always advocate and we've always been very supportive of anything that involves as much responsibility to local partners as we possibly can do, and wish the council every success with doing that. And I think we've just got to keep talking to policymakers and politicians. Is what actually matters at the moment is that these businesses succeed, because we're in a really dark place. And it won't be a little recession, this will be a humongous recession. And there are lots of things we can do about it, and getting people back into work and doing the sort of things we've described today has to happen now. And I don't think in my working time it had to happen. It's always been a bit of an option. Now it's got to happen. And that's my answer.
I mean, just a reflection on working successfully with government across difficult boundaries. I'll give you a practical example. I knew when I was doing the work on drugs that I needed 6 departments of state to work together, but I was told constantly, well, you know, Department of Health does this, DWP does that, etc. I think one sort of way in I found was if I could say, well, you want a safer society, and in order to get one of the aims of government delivered, you've really got to deal or get to grips with, in this case, the illicit drug market. To do that, I'm afraid, even though DWP does this and DH does that, we've got to perhaps do it slightly differently. So whatever you're offering has got to be in line with what the government of the day considers their priorities, and then try to go, and that may mean then they've got to do things slightly differently across barriers that they not normally or don't usually use. And actually you can work that. We've now got a joint central unit of 6 departments of state with a minister, with an annual report to Parliament, with accountability and a report into number 10. Hard for anybody to wriggle. Of course people will try and wriggle, but it serves an ultimate purpose. So it's not saying, if I want this because I'm really fed up with all these boundaries and, you know, it's not a good way to do things, but rather saying, if you want X, which is one of your aims, delivered, can we think about this sort of system? Takes a lot of persuasion, but I think there are ways around, because people just normally work in the way they've always worked. That's reality, but I think you can go round it if you can show it will deliver an ultimate goal.
Carol, there's one other 30 seconds, honestly, I know we're over time. The other thing which does exist now officially, after 6 years and many promises, is this thing called the Great Southwest. So a lot of the rurality problems that we have here are shared across our region. So that is now officially recognised. There's some money be going back. There's a whole pile of work to do. So we have got another bite of the cherry into governance to get stuff done soon.
And our final question, so you can have lunch, and I've not taken up... Oh.
Sorry, we've just got one question from our online audience. We've had loads of questions, but there's one we'd like to just give to the panel. Those with mental ill health are often unsure if their condition constitutes a disability. How can businesses make it clear and that they're also able to get the support?
Okay, that's a very good question. Anyone want to start?
I think it's back to treating the individual, isn't it? Finding ways that are not, there used to be a sort of management technique in the mid-20th century of treat everybody equally. Actually, you need to treat everybody differently, don't you, according to their needs, not, And I think everything you've heard from the panel from different perspectives so far is the answer to this as well. Treat the individual, whether that be the recruitment, advertising, the recruitment processes, the built environment of the workplace, whatever it might be, make that appropriate to everybody. And that's a state of mind of inclusivity which you've really got to adhere to for everybody.
So we're a brand new organisation, and one of the things that we've done within our employment is, and everyone, when you join a job, you have the equality survey, and you tick your box, and it will explain you've got accessibility or learning accessibly challenge, and then that person potentially, if you're as employed, will have a reasonable adjustment meeting. Okay, well, that doesn't actually make sense for myself. Why isn't everyone offered a reasonable adjustments meeting, and then the person that feels comfortable that they don't need one can say no? And that's as simple as that. And that literally changes your entire workforce, because they've got the opportunity to understand that they're listened to, cared about, because they may not have at that point when they were employed, or when that initial tick box to say they were comfortable enough to share they were autistic, or they were neurodivergent, or they can only walk 10 meters, whatever it might be.
And can I just one thing? Yeah, anything. I mean, we have the definition of disability, don't we? If it has a long-term limiting impact, mental health does come under that. So does cancer. So do various other things. So actually, this is why treating us just as individuals is just super important. It's all we can do. We might have a disability, but not need any reasonable adjustments. You know, we might not have a disability and need reasonable adjustments. I was recently a carer for my mum on top of full-time work, who, looking after her while she had dementia, and raising 5 children at the same time. Yeah, I needed some reasonable adjustments. Let's just be person-centred and support each other. That's all we need to be.
Thank you. And our final question, you've been very patient.
Edward Chapman from the Federation of Small Businesses. I loved Ishmael's maps. And one thing I identified was lack of a personal car. For older people might be a problem. That's the same for people who are young and being apprentices. They have no access to a car. And some people with disabilities can't drive. One thing that Liz Truss said on her speech was that we need to build more roads. We don't need to build more roads. We need more public transport. So what can Testbed Cornwall do to move from a car-centric society to a public transport-centric society?
I'll have to listen to all of you on this.
Yeah, big one, Edward. Well, it's been an issue for a long, long time. In the Chamber of Commerce, we've got a transport framework to try and use what you were saying, Dane Campbell, to get the terminology that central government departments will understand, but put it into the context of what Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly needs. And it's an uphill battle, because rural parts of the UK, not just Cornwall, suffer from the same thing, which is that buses aren't running at a time when people need to get to work or to interviews or whatever. There's a few initiatives happening, which probably Mark can talk a bit more about, like the metro from Newquay to Newquay Airport to Truro to Falmouth, which will open up the sort of cross-county thing. But it's a massive battle. And there was the talk of that one Cornwall, wasn't there, where you could have one ticket for buses, trains and ferries, and everything linked with one system. I'm not sure what happened to that, Mark. Are you or not? I'm not sure. So, yeah, we share it. Massive problem. It holds back the prosperity of rural areas horrendously.
Nothing's going to change quickly, Edward, as you know, in this regard, but it is now, it's two aspects of it. One, that somebody hasn't got a car. I knew from when I was running my business is that there was a car in the family, but if somebody else is using it, you can't get to work. So this ability to create roles and processes around people actually unlocked that car could then get used in different ways. And then, so for instance, having revolving shifts is not a great idea because nobody can do it. So, there isn't a quick answer. There is lots of priority given to this, but nothing's going to change quickly. I think if housing associations and house builders, to the community place creators, to the employers, can just have this front and centre of mind. I might have the role, but if people can't get there, particularly in our part of the world, then it's like as much use a chocolate teapot, isn't it? So I think that is changing, and I think there's also a role for employers, because if you want people, you have to find a way of getting them to and from, because there won't be anything different. And or you can completely go around the circle of not finding someone. So I do think it's changing now, Edward, but it's just painfully slow.
And it needs to be affordable and accessible.
Yeah. So just some practical things from an organisational perspective, really, you know, adapting roles around public service bus timetables. We've done quite a bit of that. We've changed roles to fit people's transport patterns and availability. Hybrid working, the ability to work from local offices and home. So we've created quite a lot of hot desking in different offices close to people's home, and actually cost of living, more people are asking to come back into the office than they have done in the past, so we're having to be really quite flexible about that. Role of IT as a supporter and a connector. And the other thing that we're working on, we've got 6 at the moment, we'll soon have 8, we want more, is accessible electric vehicles parked in communities, driven by one person bringing 2 or 3 people together, or being able to use by a volunteer supporting staff to move around. So lots of different practical options that we need to look at.
And one long-term thing is to create the housing for the type of people that we need to attract and retain in Cornwall near where the jobs are, so they haven't got to travel around so much.
Thank you. I hope you'll excuse me. I've gone over a little bit, but there's still time. I'm sure for lunch. Thank you all for being so good this morning. Enjoy lunch. And then you're going to have a treat with Chris Van Stolk after lunch.